I never thought I'd crave being watched while another man touched me. It sounds twisted, I know. But the truth is never neat or easy, is it? I used to be the woman who turned off the lights during sex, who bit her lip to keep quiet, who never dared to imagine anyone else but her husband. And yet, last weekend, I stood in the dim light of a guest bedroom, half naked, trembling, not just letting it happen, but needing it. The man wasn't a stranger. He was someone my husband trusted, someone we trusted. And the worst part? My husband didn't just know. He told me to do it. He sat in the corner, eyes dark with something I hadn't seen in years. Desire. And as another man's hands moved over me, as my body burned with guilt and hunger, I realized I wanted it. 2. My name is Lena. I'm 32, married for 8 years, and from the outside I suppose my life looks solid, predictable, safe. I'm a project manager at a mid-size marketing firm. I drive a silver SUV, and I wear the same 3 shades of lipstick, on rotation. People at work call me dependable. At church, they call us the stable couple. We host dinner parties with matching wine glasses and Instagram-perfect charcuterie boards. And yet, inside, I feel like I'm slowly disappearing. My husband, Mark, is a good man. I need to say that because it's true. He's kind, responsible, loyal to a fault. He rubs my back when I'm tired, remembers to buy almond milk, and texts me home soon every night. He's the kind of man my mother prayed I'd marry. But he doesn't see me anymore. Not in the way I crave. Our conversations have become logistics. Bills, groceries, scheduling sex like it's an errand. That slow burn intimacy we once had. Late night. Talks, lingering touches, his lips brushing the back of my neck. Faded years ago. Now, when he touches me, it's mechanical. Sweet, but distant. Like he's trying to love me through habit rather than hunger. I miss being wanted. I don't even blame him entirely. We both settled into a rhythm that made sense. 2 people building a life, keeping things tidy. But somewhere in the middle of all that structure, I lost the part of myself that used to feel wild and curious. Sex became predictable. Lights, off, quiet, efficient. I stopped initiating because I didn't want to feel the rejection of his distracted hands. He never said no, but his body never said yes either. And I was tired of pretending that was enough. I started fantasizing. Quietly. Guiltily. Not about love affairs or dramatic escapes, just about being seen, touched, whispered to like a secret. I began watching Strangers Too Long at the gym, wondering what it would feel like to have someone press me against a wall with the urgency Mark used to have. I still loved my husband. Or at least I loved the life we had built. But I was also suffocating in a house filled with warm routines and cold sheets. And I told myself it was just a phase, that every long-term relationship went through this, that women like me didn't need that kind of spark anymore. But I was wrong. And when someone finally looked at me the way I'd been starving for, I looked back. His name was Ethan. He wasn't a stranger. He was Mark's old college friend, someone I'd heard about for years but only met a handful of times. He lived across the country and visited maybe once every couple of years. But this time, when he came to stay with us for a long weekend, something felt different. Or maybe I was different. Ethan was everything Mark wasn't, at least not anymore. He was relaxed, playful, just rough around the edges. The kind of man who didn't care if his shirt was wrinkled or his laugh was too loud. He had this quiet magnetism, like he moved through the world with nothing to prove. And when he looked at me, it wasn't casual, it wasn't polite, it was deliberate. The first night he stayed over, we had dinner on the patio, grilled salmon, white wine, string lights above us. Ethan made us laugh so hard Mark nearly choked on his drink. I laughed too, genuinely, for the first time in weeks. And then I caught Ethan watching me. Not in an obvious way. No leering, no smirking. But his eyes lingered on my mouth when I laughed, my collarbone when I adjusted the strap of my dress. There was heat in his gaze, unspoken, restrained. But it was there. Later that night, after Mark went to bed early with a headache, Ethan and I stayed up talking. "I've never seen you like this," he said quietly, his eyes holding mine. "Like what?" I asked, suddenly aware of how exposed I felt in my thin robe, the way it parted slightly at my thigh. Relaxed, alive. That word hung between us. Alive. Like he knew. Like he saw straight through me. I didn't sleep well that night. Lay awake next to Mark, feeling the heat of Ethan's words still burning under my skin. The next morning, I tried to ignore it. I dressed more modestly, kept my eyes down. But Ethan kept watching me. Subtle, careful, but constant. Like he was waiting for a crack to open, and I felt it happening. The slow drip of temptation, pooling in the quiet corners of my marriage. By the second night, it wasn't just looks. It was touches. Barely there grazes. His hand brushing mine when I passed him a dish. His palm at the small of my back as I reached for a wine glass. They seemed innocent. But every one of them lingered. Every one of them said, "I notice you." We went for a walk that evening, just the two of us. Mark had fallen asleep on the couch watching some documentary. Ethan asked if I wanted fresh air. I said yes before I could think better of it. We walked in silence at first, down the empty sidewalk, the moon painting silver over our path. "Are you happy, Lena?" he asked suddenly. The question hit me like a gust of wind. I don't know, I admitted, not looking at him. Sometimes it's complicated. "You don't seem happy," he said, not unkindly. I stopped walking, turned to face him. "Why do you care?" He took a step closer. His voice dropped. "Because I remember you. From the wedding. You were glowing, laughing with your whole body. And now, I don't know. You seem like you're holding your breath." I swallowed. Hard. "You don't even know me." "I think I do," he said softly. "Or at least, I want to." I felt it then. Desire, sharp and sudden, rising through my chest like a wave. I should have pulled back, should have said goodnight. But I didn't. I walked back to the house with my fingers still tingling from the closeness of his hand, from the heat that passed between us like static. The next morning, I wore lipstick I hadn't touched in months. I told myself it was just flirting, just a game, just the thrill of being noticed. I wasn't going to act on it. I was a married woman. I loved my husband. But the truth, I was already slipping. Every glance from Ethan felt like oxygen after years underwater. Every brush of his skin against mine made me remember I had a body, needs, a hunger that hadn't been fed in so long, I'd forgotten how starved I was. One afternoon, I walked into the guest room to bring him fresh towels. He was standing by, the window shirtless, towel slung low on his hips. Our eyes met, and for a moment, neither of us moved. I dropped the towels. He bent to pick them up, and his hand grazed mine, slow, deliberate. Our faces were close. Our breath mingled. "I shouldn't," I whispered. "You haven't yet," he whispered back, lips just inches from mine. But we both knew. It was already happening, and neither of us wanted to stop. It happened on the last night of Ethan's visit. Mark had gone to bed early again. He'd had 2 glasses of wine, and drifted off during the movie we'd half-watched in the living room. I tucked a blanket over him and stood there for a long minute, looking down at the man I married. He looked peaceful, familiar, safe. I whispered, "Good night," even though he wouldn't hear it. Then I turned and walked down the hallway, slowly, quietly. Ethan's door was cracked open. The glow of a lamp spilled out like something warm and forbidden. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. My legs felt weak, but I kept moving. I pushed the door open. He was sitting at the edge of the bed, shirtless, sweatpants low on his hips. His eyes lifted to mine, and for a moment, neither of us spoke. "I can't sleep," I said, my voice barely audible. "Me neither," he murmured. He stood slowly. The room was thick with tension, with heat, with everything we hadn't said out loud but had been screaming in glances for days. "Are you sure?" he asked softly. I nodded. I wasn't sure. Not of anything except this magnetic pull between us, this aching desire that had been building and now threatened to break me open. He stepped closer. His hand rose, fingers brushing a strand of hair behind my ear. His touch was gentle, almost reverent, and then his lips were on mine. Soft at first, testing, searching, then deeper, hungrier. I gasped into his mouth as he pulled me closer. His hands slid down my back, firm and warm, anchoring me to the moment. I hadn't been kissed like that in years, like someone was trying to memorize the taste of me. When his tongue met mine, something in me shattered. I clutched at him, pressing my body to his, needing to feel skin and heat and friction. His hands found the hem of my sleep shirt and slid it upward, fingertips grazing my sides, my ribs. I lifted my arms without thinking, letting him peel it off. He stepped back for a heartbeat and looked at me. Really looked. Not just at my body, but into me, like he saw every piece I'd buried for years. "You're beautiful," he whispered. No one had said that to me with conviction in so long. Not like this. Not while looking like they meant it. I reached for him, and he came willingly. Our mouths met again as he walked me backward toward the bed. When the backs of my knees hit the mattress, I let myself fall. He followed, lips trailing, down my neck, over the slope of my collarbone. I arched beneath him as his mouth moved lower, his hands exploring like he had all the time in the world. When his lips closed around my nipple, I let out a moan I didn't recognize as my own. My body felt electric, alive in a way it hadn't in years. I thought briefly of Mark, of his quiet kisses, his routine touches. And for a second, guilt pierced me like a shard of glass. But then Ethan's hand slid between my thighs, and my breath hitched. "You're shaking," he murmured. "I know," I whispered. "I don't know if I can do this." "You're already doing it," he said gently, his fingers teasing over my inner thigh. "But we can stop. Just say the word." I didn't say it. Instead, I reached down and guided his hand higher. I was already soaked, and the moment his fingers found me, I let out a broken cry. My legs parted without thought, welcoming him. My body was making decisions my brain had, long since given up trying to control. He kissed me as he touched me, slow, tender, coaxing pleasure from me like he was drawing it out by memory. And when he slid 2 fingers inside me, curling just right, I clung to him, trembling. I came with my face buried in his neck, biting back a scream. He held me through it, his other hand stroking my hair, whispering things I couldn't hear over the thunder of my heartbeat. And then, When I opened my eyes, he was looking at me like I was the center of the universe. "You okay?" he asked. I nodded, still breathless. "More than okay." He shed the rest of his clothes and I watched, mesmerized. Every movement he made felt intentional, masculine, real. When he moved between my thighs, he hesitated. "Tell me again," he said. "Yes," I breathed. "Please." The first moment of him entering me was almost unbearable in its intensity. I gasped, wrapping my legs around him instinctively. He moved slowly at first, letting me adjust, letting me feel every inch of him. It was different, not just the mechanics, but the energy. The way he held my gaze, the way he groaned when I moaned, the way he responded to my every breath. With Mark, sex had become muted, quiet, predictable. With Ethan, it was like rediscovering my body, every nerve ending lit, every inch claimed. We moved together like something sacred, like two people, starved for touch. He whispered my name against my skin like a prayer. I clawed at his back, kissed his jaw, told him not to stop. Not yet. Not ever. When he picked up the pace, I met every thrust with equal hunger. My second orgasm came fast and hard, rolling through me like a storm. He followed moments later, groaning into my shoulder as he pulsed inside me, our bodies locked in a fevered embrace. Afterward, he collapsed beside me, both of us slick with sweat and silence. And that's when the guilt came rushing in. I rolled onto my back, staring at the ceiling, my heart still racing. "What have I done?" I whispered. Ethan didn't answer right away. He reached for my hand and held it, fingers laced with mine. "You did what you needed," he said softly. I didn't know if that made it better or worse. All I knew was that I didn't feel empty. I didn't feel hollow. I felt seen, touched, desired. For the first time in years, I felt alive, but also utterly undone. The morning after, the house felt too quiet. I woke before dawn, tangled in Ethan's arms, the sheets warm and damp with our bodies. For a long minute, I just lay there, breathing in the scent of his skin, the musky reminder of what we'd done. His fingers rested lightly on my hip, as if he still wasn't ready to let me go. But I had to. I slipped out of bed, careful not to wake him, and padded down the hallway in silence. I could hear Mark snoring softly in our bedroom. The sound stopped me cold at the door. For a second, I couldn't move. My heart pounded in my chest as if my body knew I didn't belong here anymore. When I finally stepped back into our room, guilt hit me like a tidal wave. Mark looked so peaceful. His hair was mussed, his mouth slightly open, the corners of his eyes soft with sleep. This was the man who had loved me through every version of myself, who had never yelled, never betrayed me, never let me down in the big ways. And I had betrayed him in the most intimate way imaginable. I climbed into bed beside him like a thief returning to the scene of the crime. My skin still tingled from Ethan's hands, my thighs still ached from the way he held me. I curled away from Mark and stared at the wall, wondering if I could ever unfeel what I'd just felt. He stirred and wrapped an arm around my waist. "Morning," he mumbled against my shoulder, pressing a soft kiss there. "Morning," I whispered. The warmth of his touch didn't comfort me. It made my chest tighten. He didn't know. He had no idea that my body, still sticky with another man's sweat, had been somewhere else entirely just hours ago. I didn't sleep for the rest of the morning. When I got up, I scrubbed myself raw in the shower, as if I could rinse the betrayal from my skin. But no matter how hard I tried, I could still feel Ethan's lips, the way he whispered my name like it meant something. I tried to fall back into routine. Coffee, small talk, eggs over easy. Ethan stayed in his room longer than usual, giving me space I didn't ask for but desperately needed. Mark kissed my temple before leaving for work. "Love you," he said. "Love you too," I replied automatically. But I wasn't sure what I meant anymore. That evening, Mark suggested we go out to dinner, just the two of us. I nodded numbly. Maybe I thought I could fix it somehow. Reconnect. Pretend. At the restaurant, he reached for my hand across the table. "You've been quiet lately," he said. "Everything okay?" I looked into his eyes, kind, concerned, full of a love I once felt so deeply. I hated him in that moment, hated his goodness, his predictability, the way he made me feel like I was the broken one. "I'm just tired," I said. He nodded, not pushing. He never pushed. That night, we had sex. It was soft, familiar, rhythmic. He kissed me like he always did, touched me like he always did. I lay beneath him and tried to respond, tried to summon desire, to fake the sounds I knew he liked to hear. But I felt nothing. Not disgust. Not joy. Just nothing. And that scared me more than anything. Because with Ethan, I had felt everything. The contrast was brutal. With Mark, it was like going through the motions of something I used to love but couldn't quite remember how to feel. With Ethan, it was raw, unfiltered, messy, alive. Afterward, Mark held me. "You okay?" he asked. I turned away, hiding the tears I didn't expect. "Yeah," I whispered. "Just tired." That became my new refrain. I wasn't sure what I regretted more, that I cheated, or that I didn't regret it enough. Because the truth was, I didn't miss the sex with Mark. I missed the version of myself I used to be when I was with him, before everything turned into routine, before desire faded into obligation. And now, I couldn't go back. I had crossed a line I could never uncross. And the worst part? Some broken, burning part of me wanted to cross it again. Ethan left 2 days later. There were no dramatic goodbyes, no whispered promises or last-minute kisses in the hallway. He hugged Mark first, thanking him for the hospitality. Then he turned to me and simply said, "Take care of yourself, okay?" And I nodded. That was all. He didn't ask for more. He didn't push. Maybe he knew what I was still trying to admit to myself, that I was suspended between two lives, two selves, and didn't yet have the courage to choose either. After he was gone, I walked through the house in a daze. Everything felt too clean, too still, like a museum curated around someone else's life. Mark asked if I was okay. I told him I was fine. Of course I did. I'd become good at lying, mostly, to myself. For weeks I tried to forget. I threw myself into work, scheduled dinner dates with Mark, even suggested a weekend getaway to rekindle whatever flicker might still remain. We laughed. We made love. We went through the script of a healthy marriage. But it never felt real again. Not after Ethan. Not after I remembered what it felt like to be seen, desired, touched, like I mattered. I didn't see Ethan again, not in person. But late at night, when Mark was asleep beside me, I found myself reading our old text thread, rewatching every exchange like a scene from a film I'd lived, but didn't know how to revisit. And then, one night, I typed 3 words. "Do you miss me?" He replied in minutes. More than I should. That's when I realized I wasn't done. Not with Ethan. Not with what he made me feel. But I wasn't ready to leave either. Not yet. Because for all my hunger and guilt, my shame, and craving, I still loved Mark. Or at least the comfort he gave me. the safety, the version of life we had built. So I made a choice, not a clean one, not the kind that makes a woman noble or tragic, but the kind that lets her breathe. I didn't end my marriage. I didn't end the affair. I just allowed both to exist, quietly, carefully, without definition. I became two women, one who made breakfast for her husband and folded his laundry with familiar love, and one who once in a while disappeared into hotel rooms with a man who awakened her from the inside out. I don't know if that makes me cruel or just human. All I know is this. For the first time in a very long time, I feel alive, and I'm not ready to give that up.